Hi everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to this Trying to Conceive webinar. Tonight we will be exploring how we can draw on acupuncture and Chinese medicine to support fertility struggles. So it's absolutely lovely to welcome Ian Stones, a leading fertility acupuncturist, to give us his expert opinion about this philosophy. Hi Ian.
Hello, good evening.
It's lovely to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Now, as usual, this webinar will begin with Ian's presentation and then we'll move on to a short Q&A session. Now, if you want to submit any questions, all you have to do is hover your cursor down at the bottom of the screen, click on Q&A and a box should appear, and make sure you select the anonymous function within that box, because that will ensure that none of your personal details are disclosed, as this will be recorded and it will be watched by others later. Please feel free to just submit your questions while we're going along and we will come back to them at the end of the webinar later. Okay, I think that's time to hand over to you now, Ian.
Lovely, thank you very much. Thanks for that lovely intro as well. It's very nice.
See you later.
Yeah, ta-da. Right, bear with me everybody whilst I just get myself set up. Make sure I don't accidentally mute myself like I did before. And then we will be ready to go. So I'm going to leave my chat box open during this presentation, just so that I can check that you're all still awake and just make sure that what I'm covering makes sense. So right, I'm all set up, ready to go. Good evening, my name's Ian Stones. I am a fertility acupuncturist based in Farnham, Surrey, and at home here in Hove in East Sussex. I've been practicing for over 12 years. I'm affiliated to the Zeta West Clinic up in London. I've done a lot of additional training with them, and also had the very fortunate opportunity to go in and spend a day with their embryologist in their clinic as well, which was amazing. Prior to being an acupuncturist, I served as a firefighter in the fire and rescue service, and I also worked for the British Acupuncture Council, the professional body, as their safe practice officer. What I will say is I might be a pretty good acupuncturist. I'm not necessarily a tech person, so fingers crossed nothing goes disastrously wrong here this evening. So here's what I plan to cover. I believe we've got about 30 minutes. I do tend to digress from time to time, but I will try and keep on track. And this is what I plan to cover. We may cover more, we may cover less. I may go off on a complete tangent. But I'd like to talk about what is acupuncture and Chinese medicine, the process of treatment and what to expect. So what actually happens when you go and see an acupuncturist? What outcomes and benefits, can you expect from treatment? And this is, drawn on my years of experience and what feedback I get from my clients. And supporting men on the fertility journey as well. And I think this is something that is very but there's a lack of support for men, and actually I believe acupuncture has a place in supporting men a lot more on the fertility journey. So how can we get them engaged and involved, and what are the benefits for them? And then hopefully by the end of the session I will give you some kind of hints and tips, things that you can think about that you can bring into your day-to-day life that will help in terms of your overall health and well-being. And then at the end, as Heather mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session, and I'll be here to answer as many questions as we have. So, what is Chinese medicine and acupuncture? How do I summarize that in a couple of minutes? It took me 3.5 years to do my degree in acupuncture, so I'll try and see if I can bring it down to a very simple kind of concept. Now, it does date back 2,000 to 3,000 years. Some of the ancient Chinese medicine texts date back that far. Whether it actually involved a woolly mammoth, I do not know, but I just love that picture. I think it's fantastic. Stories go that there were soldiers in wars when it was bows and arrows times, that when they were hit with arrows in certain conditions, in certain places, the doctors tending to them noticed that certain ailments were improving. And that was the very early days of acupuncture. And then they developed through using shards of bone and sharpened sticks and all sorts to start pressing on certain points in the body to see what reactions they got. We have progressed quite a long way since those days, so we don't use shards of bone and twigs anymore. But the concept is that we have a vital energy that flows around us within our body. In Chinese medicine, we talk about that as qi, qi, and it's connected and flows through a whole series of channels throughout the body. And what Chinese medicine and acupuncture does is we use the needles and acupuncture points, and we may use acupressure to influence that energy to help it flow more easily and flow better. Because in Chinese medicine, we see that symptoms are a sign of imbalance. They're a sign that something's going wrong with that flow of energy. So, without me waffling on too much, I've actually got a really short video that's come from the British Acupuncture Council, which actually summarizes this in much better terms than I can. So, we have only just tested this. So we will play it, and hopefully you can all hear it. If you can't hear it, please say so on the chat box, and we'll skip this slide.
Traditional acupuncture is now one of the most popular therapies in the UK. Despite its widely recognised health benefits, many people only discover the therapy as a last resort. Rooted in over 2,000 years of history and backed by evidence-based research, traditional acupuncture is used to treat a wide range of both physical and emotional conditions. The therapy is based on the meridian system and the balance and flow of energy known as qi. Energy flows in lines called meridians up and down the body, just like the electrical circuits in a house. It is believed that illness and pain occur when the meridians become unbalanced or blocked, and so the energy can no longer flow freely. Fine, sterile needles are placed painlessly on the body to help regulate this flow of energy, encouraging a healing response and restoring balance. The holistic style of traditional acupuncture means that treatment is unique for each individual. The focus is on the root cause of a problem, not just the symptoms, to help restore or maintain good health. This system of healthcare is practiced by members of the British Acupuncture Council, who must each undertake a minimum of 3 years training at degree level, meeting World Health Organization standards. Practitioners have a comprehensive understanding of modern health complaints, as training covers extensive Western medical theory. If you're searching for an acupuncturist, make sure you research your practitioner first to guarantee safety, professionalism, and a high standard of care. Visit the British Acupuncture Council's website, www.acupuncture.org.uk.
So there we go. She says it much better than I could, far more succinctly. And obviously that's a great advert for the British Acupuncture Council, who I mention later actually when it comes to how do you find an acupuncturist. I think what's important also within that video is that we're talking about traditional acupuncture, because there is a difference, and you will hear various other people talking about acupuncture and or what's known as dry needling. So you may find that there's osteopaths, chiropractors, physiotherapists who talk about using acupuncture, or dry needling as it's also known. And it's important to draw the distinction and the difference, because the acupuncture that I'm talking about this evening and that I'm trained in is traditional acupuncture, so it is based on the philosophy of Chinese medicine. And that philosophy, that leads very nicely into this slide, is all based around the concept of yin and yang, the circle that you can see on the slide in front of you at the moment. And that's the principle that this is the concept of balance. This is what everything is based about, is yin and yang, and those two energies, those two forces, should be in perfect balance. A very simple way to understand yin and yang would be comparing winter to summer, or hot to cold. So actually, as we now head into autumn and over into winter, we're coming into the most yin time of year. And the summer, as the energy rises, it gets hotter and we're all more active, is the more yang time of year. So it's always about balancing those two energies. And within acupuncture, we're looking to find out what your state of energy is. And as it says here, imbalance creates symptoms. So if there's something wrong in the body, if your energy is not as balanced and healthy as it should be, then we will pick up, or we develop symptoms. And for us as acupuncturists, or me as an acupuncturist, the symptoms give me an indication of what's going wrong within the body. So symptoms are a sign of the imbalance for us. I hope I'm all making sense. I'm making sense to you all so far. If you want to put a yes in the box, that'd be great, just to know that you're all still awake. So how do we find out where your imbalances lie? So I'm slightly out of sync with this. This is what to expect when you go for treatment, but these three elements are important in terms of what to expect and how we then find out where your imbalances lie and what's contributing to your issues. So this is actually how I present how I work to my clients, and that I follow a 3-step process. The first step is to identify what's going on. Then once we've identified the issues, we move on to resolve the issues, and that's through treatment, lifestyle advice, dietary advice, and making sure that you're doing all that you can. And then once we've resolved as many of those issues, we work with you to maintain that balance, because all the time you're as close to balance as possible, you will be in the best possible way in terms of your health. And then it may be that you kind of continue that circle, because our energy is always changing. It's changing with the seasons, it's changing with what we eat, it's changing with our emotional state, our stress. And for a woman in terms of fertility, there's a very clear shift in terms of energy from one half of the menstrual cycle to the other half. In fact, the first half of the menstrual cycle is all about the yin energy, and the second half of the menstrual cycle is all about the yang energy. So in terms of the identify aspects of the work, these are the kind of areas and questions that we work on. So it's a very comprehensive case history when you first go and see an acupuncturist. We usually spend about an hour going through lots of health related questions. Most of my clients are quite shocked how much I actually ask them. Not because it's intrusive, but they're like, oh right, you want to know that? Oh, do you want to know that? And it really is very, very in depth. And naturally, of course, with fertility, there's a lot of focus on the menstrual cycle and fertility history, because that's a really good diagnostic tool for us. So a menstrual cycle will give us a very good idea of where somebody's energy is. And it's interesting actually, because I was working with a client earlier this week and discussing what is classed as a normal menstrual cycle, because she said, actually, I had a really good period this month, because previously she was in a lot of pain and she thought that was her normal. But actually, a normal menstrual cycle should be pain-free. That pain is an indication of imbalance to us. We then look at things like sleep. So what's your sleep pattern like when you're going to bed? What time are you getting up? Are you sleeping all the way through? Are you getting lots of dreams? Diet and nutrition is inevitably very important. And certainly a lot of my fertility clients are very aware of their diet and very aware of what they should be eating and shouldn't be eating from a Western point of view. But with traditional Chinese medicine, food is medicine. And actually, acupuncture is quite a late intervention in Chinese healthcare. One of the first things a Chinese doctor will look at is what you're eating and what your exercise and sleep patterns are like, because that is something that's far more easily influenced and changed and will get you far quicker results and health benefits than acupuncture alone. So diet and nutrition is really, really important. And I might come back to that a little later on. How is your overall energy? Are you a very tired person? Are you a very energetic person? Do you struggle first thing in the morning? Do you have that 3-4 o'clock slump? These are all indicators of where the imbalances lie. Work-life balance is a huge part of everybody's life. And it's a big one with fertility clients. Certainly, how do you juggle a career? How do you juggle commuting, socializing, getting to the gym or doing the things that you love, and making sure that that is balanced? Because we're all stretched. Life is busy, life is stressful. So it's making sure that we assess how that is for you. And again, funny, I've had somebody I was working with again recently where her diary was always ram-packed. And I was like, well, where's the time for you? You know, you're stressed, busy running around, but you're not booking time out for yourself. But really, really important, that one. Exercise. So are you doing any exercise? And the exercise you are doing, is it the right exercise, and is it at the right time of the menstrual cycle? So actually, and also actually, is it the right time of year? So, you know, a lot of people hit the gym, think it's the thing to be doing. A lot of people go out running, and I have to kind of educate them and say, well, actually, this might not be the best thing to be doing at this time, whilst you're trying to conceive, or whilst you're on your period, or now that we're heading into winter. So again, it's making sure people are doing the right exercise for them. And all of this is about understanding the personalized element of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. This is about understanding what's right for you and not the next client, and that it's not formulaic, that everybody will get exactly the same thing. And again, kind of ties in a little bit with work-life balance, is how are you managing lifestyle and stress? And acupuncture helps hugely with that. And of course, emotions. So how is stress impacting on you? How is work impacting on you? How is your entire fertility journey impacting on your emotions? And understanding those emotions and how they could be influencing your energy. For example, a lot of frustration and anger will cause your energy to get very blocked. Very blocked energy will then potentially cause a irregular menstrual cycle or a very painful menstrual cycle. So it's understanding how all of those elements can influence your energy and what the knock-on effects are. So like I said, it's a really comprehensive case history to get a good understanding of how things are for you. So then, through treatment, we aim to resolve as much of that as possible. And the aim of acupuncture, as I said before, is always to try and get you back as close to balance as we can possibly do. And inevitably, life will always be knocking you out of balance. You'll have a late night, you'll have a busy weekend, you'll have a stressful day at the office, you know, you'll pick up a stomach bug. All of these things are always knocking our energy. But once you've got the tools, you can learn to adapt and change and manage those things a lot better. So in terms of resolving stuff, inevitably, obviously, you come see an acupuncturist, there is the treatment. So with the acupuncture, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to influence your energy. We're trying to clear the blockages. We're trying to maybe move some fluids, drain fluids. We might be trying to promote blood flow in terms of the menstrual cycle and blood flow to the uterus. We might be helping in trying to strengthen some of the organs to make sure they're working as well as possible. So treatment will always be working with the symptoms and the issues that have been identified in your case history. Then comes the lifestyle advice. And this actually, I think, is one of the bigger parts of what we do. And that goes hand in hand with dietary advice. As I said earlier, lifestyle and diet are one of the first interventions in Chinese medicine. Acupuncture actually comes quite late on. So you'd look at diet, you'd look at lifestyle, you would look at exercise. You then might look at taking things like Chinese herbs. You then might have something like Tuina massage, which again is based in Chinese medicine, before you actually have acupuncture. It's only over here in the West where we seem to have separated some things out and we do the acupuncture kind of separately. But the lifestyle and dietary advice is a huge part of what I do and a huge part of what most acupuncturists do, because this is about educating you as to what's right for your lifestyle. What do you need to change that's personal to you that will help you the most based on what we've identified in your case history? So do you need to be getting more rest? Do you need to be going to bed earlier? What foods do you need to be eating at certain times of the month or certain times of the year? So one of the simple things that I can give you as a takeaway for now is how our diet should change with the seasons. So during the summer, it's absolutely fine for us to be eating lots of cold raw foods, things like salads and fruit, because we have the warmth and the energy of the summer sun and the yang energy to break that food down. Whereas in the winter, it's not good to be eating salads and cold food. It's important that we eat warming foods such as stews and casseroles and soups. So it's important to understand how that advice changes, or your needs change throughout the year. But then there's also how you change your diet around your menstrual cycle, and the importance of eating certain foods between from day one of your period up to ovulation. Those foods at that point should all be about nourishing the blood. So all your dark leafy green vegetables, spinach, curly kale, beetroot, and a little bit of red meat as well, all helps nourish the body. And the idea of the lifestyle and dietary advice is that it's educating you and teaching you how to listen to your body and change what you're doing so that you enhance and maintain good health. The treatment is there to tweak and change things, but actually lifestyle and dietary advice are key in terms of you then making progress and improving your health. Throughout the treatment, inevitably there's a huge amount of emotional support. Couples going through fertility treatment, it's a huge roller coaster. There's lots of ups, there's lots of downs, and seeing an acupuncturist regularly provides a lot of emotional support, and that's probably one of the next big things that my clients report in terms of getting, what they get out of treatment, as well as actually some guidance and advice on next steps. The number of women that I've seen that are coming towards the end of their IVF cycles, or certainly coming towards the end of treatment with their own egg reserve and are now considering donor eggs, they're facing some really difficult decisions. So actually having somebody impartial and independent that they trust and can talk to is invaluable for them. So on to treatment planning. What does it actually look like? What is the commitment? How often do you have to come? How does it kind of work in that sense? So I always recommend to my clients that they look at a course or a program of treatment. That is usually the best way to start. Acupuncture works in terms of a cumulative effect. So the first couple of treatments, for me, I'm getting to know the client's getting to know me, and I'm seeing how they start to respond to treatment. But also it's kind of like putting foundations in place. If you put good foundations in place for the first treatment, and then build that up with the good lifestyle advice, the dietary changes, then you start shifting somebody's health quite considerably. So you need to commit to regular treatment over a decent period of time. So initially that treatment should be weekly, I would recommend. My starter program actually covers 3 months and allows people to come every single week. And I find that gets me far better results than changing to every other week or every third week too soon. But you will find acupuncturists out there all work slightly differently. So I'm kind of talking from my personal experience. This is how I would work, but certainly initially weekly. Then it may be once somebody's got to a good place in terms of their diet, their lifestyle, they're in a more balanced position, they're calmer, stress levels are reduced, then we would move to every other week is usually a good kind of pattern, and that quite often ties in quite nicely with the menstrual cycle. Throughout the whole program, whenever you're coming for treatment, the lifestyle and dietary advice is ongoing all the time. A lot of my clients end up having to come in and say, oh, sorry, I had a glass of wine over the weekend, or I ate too much dessert, or whatever it is. That's fine, that's cool, but it's nice to have somebody to share that with, and somebody who's almost like an accountability buddy to help keep you on track. And I think that's particularly important, especially for male fertility, but all fertility. It's important to have that ongoing support. And again, through that ongoing treatment, it's ongoing emotional support as well. And then the treatment plans are adjusted around your needs and any additional treatment that you might be having. So when I'm working with couples that are trying to conceive, the journey can be quite long. I've worked with clients for 3, 4, 5 years, and equally I've worked with some clients just for 3 or 4 months. It very much depends where they're at. But acupuncture can very much can very much be a partner as you go through treatment, or as you just continue your natural attempt at trying to conceive. And what you may find is, or what I find when I'm working with my clients, is we might be on a 2-weekly kind of treatment plan, so see somebody every 2 weeks. And then if they're heading towards an IVF cycle, it's okay, fine, let's now switch back to weekly. And certainly throughout an IVF cycle, I would want to see somebody weekly right up until test day. And then with a positive pregnancy test, we would continue treatment. And that's an important thing to note, actually, is that acupuncture is perfectly safe throughout pregnancy as well. So we would then continue up to 12 weeks at very least. So as a matter of interest, who do I typically work with? Who tends to present to me for some acupuncture treatment? Typically, women in their 30s and early 40s. They've usually been trying to conceive for around 1 to 2 years, often struggling to balance their career with starting a family. So how do they kind of dedicate time to themselves, look after themselves, manage their diet, manage their stress, do the exercise, and stay sane while still trying to conceive? They're often already relatively health aware. Quite a lot of my clients come in, they've sorted their diet out to some degree, they're doing some exercise, they're aware of the do's and don'ts. So quite often for me, it's just tweaking, and it's thinking about the specific needs of those clients at that point. So, okay, great, you've got here, now we can enhance that and we can do this in terms of changing diet. Quite often the people I'm working with have already had some fertility investigations or treatment, whether that's been an IVF cycle, several IVF cycles, they've unfortunately had a miscarriage. They've usually been a little way in their journey. So people often come to acupuncture perhaps not late, but a bit later than would have been beneficial. What I would say is acupuncture and Chinese medicine can be hugely beneficial in terms of helping prepare for trying to start a family, or helping to prepare to start an IVF journey. In fact, I would usually recommend that somebody tries to come and see me 3 or 4 months before they start an IVF journey, or an IVF treatment, because then you get the chance to change your diet, change your lifestyle, and get yourself in the best possible place in terms of your fertility and general well-being. And it's quite common for me to work with people who are struggling with secondary infertility. So they've had one child, they've given it 4 or 5 years, and it's not happening. You know, first child came along after 3 or 4 months, and now they're a year down the road and things aren't going to plan. They will then start to feel a bit stressed. There's the social pressure of trying to have a second child. There's the expectation from family, and it all starts building up. So it's quite common for me to work with people that have one child but are struggling to have their second. What sort of problems do people present with? Any of this lot: PCOS, endometriosis, irregular or painful periods, low ovarian reserve, other gynae issues. People that are looking at donor egg options. I've worked with several same-sex couples. I've worked with some surrogates of late. And unfortunately, this bottom one is sometimes the most challenging, is couples that have been through the tests with the NHS. They've seen a consultant, the guy's had a semen analysis, and they've got that dreaded unexplained fertility. So they're usually kind of at their wits' end, not knowing what else they can do. In terms of the other elements that come with all of that, is these people are stressed, anxiety is having an impact on their confidence. Some people are kind of a bit lost, don't know what to do for the best. And there can be a real sense that they're missing out on life. And it's very sad to say that I have seen some women dedicate an entire decade of their 30s to try to conceive. And that can be really soul-destroying and really upsetting for them. So acupuncture can play a really great role in supporting them through that time. And also working with women, I often see a lot of them very trapped in their career because they know they want to start a family and they're trying desperately, but they're not happy in their job, but they don't want to change their job because they're trapped by maternity leave. So there's the kind of wider context going on in terms of trying to conceive, and acupuncture can be really good at helping manage all of those elements. So in terms of outcomes, what do clients say when they've had treatment with me? Definitely more relaxed, and for me that's kind of palpable really. One, in terms of how their energy feels when I take their pulses, but they leave looking more relaxed and calm. Believe it or not, quite often a lot of my clients fall asleep. Some people think that's just crazy, that this man puts needles in you and you fall asleep. Yeah, they really do. Definitely better able to cope with the emotional ups and downs, for sure. They often see positive changes in their menstrual cycle. So I've worked with some women where there's one that springs to mind. She had no menstrual cycle. She was running a lot. So this is how kind of exercise and diet was really important. So we reduced her running, we changed her diet, and her menstrual cycle returned at about 38, 35 days as the average. And over the course of treatment, we got that down to 28 days. And then within a few months of her having a 28-day cycle, she conceived naturally. So we can see some really positive changes like that, as well as helping with the pain and the emotional ups and downs and PMT and what have you. The diet and lifestyle changes, which have help improve energy, sleeping and eating habits. Guidance and support and next steps, I think I mentioned that earlier. And all of my clients really appreciate that safe place to talk openly and honestly. When I've asked for feedback from my clients, what do they enjoy about working with me? I'm often referred to as being like a counsellor. I'm not, I never claimed to be a counsellor, but it is creating that safe place for somebody to talk openly and honestly, and they haven't got that pressure of it being a loved one, a partner who's trying to fix things. It's just somebody who can listen. And I think that is invaluable in terms of what is on offer during an acupuncture appointment. So what about the men? Now, this is one of my huge passions, and I would love to see more men talking openly about their fertility. That's a dream for me, is to actually make it okay for men to talk about their sperm health. Because in 40% of fertility or subfertility cases, the issue sits with the man. Male infertility is rising, and we've seen a decline or a lowering of sperm, what's classed as a normal sperm test, a normal sperm sample, down from 20 million to 15 million from the World Health Organization. And this is most likely down to environmental impacts, dietary impacts, and stress and lifestyle. What I found from talking to my clients, the men I've spoken to and the women that I've worked with, is there's very little support for men. There's not many places for them to go and actually talk openly about their issues. And acupuncture can help with that. Certainly from what I've heard, there's not a great deal of support from the IVF clinics. The GPs aren't able to give a lot of time to men. And there's no consistent and reliable advice for men. They kind of hear a little bit from this, a little bit from that. Most of the information the men get is from their partner. So inevitably that creates some friction. What do you mean I can't go out on my bike? What do you mean I can't have a beer? I think it's different when they hear it from a professional, and that professional can be an acupuncturist with fertility experience. And men need emotional support too. It's, when a man gets a bad sperm sample result, it's a huge dent to their ego, unfortunately, and they take it really badly, and they then don't know where to turn. So, what do they do with those emotions? It all goes inside. They have nobody to talk to, nobody to share it with. Some men do, I might be generalizing here, but I think men need more emotional support. And again, acupuncture can really help with that. And in terms of sperm health, diet and lifestyle are key, absolutely fundamental, along with good supplementation, as well as managing stress, can make a huge difference to sperm health. So if men can turn up and engage in this process and perhaps go and see an acupuncturist, we can help them massively. And it's also important to look at things like the sperm comet test. So a standard semen analysis will give so much information, but there are other tests out there like the sperm comet test, which actually look at the DNA within the sperm and can give a better indication of how diet and lifestyle is really affecting sperm health. So I'm aware of time because it's now 25 to 9. So how can Chinese medicine help you day to day? It can help you learn to live a more balanced life. It can help you adjust your diet, your lifestyle, so that you live by the seasons and listen to your body. Having acupuncture is an educational experience. It's not an intervention. And as you go through treatment, you learn more and more about your body. You learn more and more how it responds to certain stimulus, whether it's emotions or stress or work or diet. And you can learn how to tweak and change things, such as food. So the importance of what food you need to eat and when you need to eat it. What exercise you need to be doing. Is it the right exercise at the right time? Again, this is all part of the educational process. And it helps relieve stress and the negative effects that has on the body. And one of the things I very often hear from my clients, once I'm maybe 6, 7, 8 sessions into treatment, is that all of a sudden they kind of report being better able to cope with stress. They are more relaxed, and life happens, stuff happens, but it's more like water off a duck's back. It kind of flows a lot easier for them, and they therefore are better able to cope. And hopefully it helps you feel more focused, more confident, and more in control that you're doing something positive to help you on your fertility journey. So just very, very quickly, obviously we had the video earlier on in the presentation, how to find an acupuncturist, because you could Google acupuncture for fertility and there could be hundreds in your area. How do you know that they're properly trained, trusted, and know what they're doing? Certainly the British Acupuncture Council will be a very good place to start. So they are the leading professional body representing traditional acupuncturists in the UK. They've got around 2,800 members. And if you go to their website, you can search via postcode and find somebody local to you. I would highly recommend phoning 2, 3 or 4 people and actually just having a conversation with them. Find out who you like, find out who you can kind of gel with, ask them some questions, get some sort of feedback from them as to how they work. Don't pick the first person and just go for it. I mean, it may work, but I do believe you should, in effect, interview your therapist. Why shouldn't you? Another good resource would be the Zeta West Affiliated Acupuncturist Network. So as I mentioned, I'm affiliated to the clinic. So the vast majority of the acupuncturists on their list are already registered with the British Acupuncture Council. So they will be experienced acupuncturists, and they've naturally shown an interest in working with fertility clients because they've registered with the Zeta West Clinic. There's also a body, or there's interest groups around the UK called the Acupuncture and Childbirth Team. So although obviously it mentions childbirth, actually a lot of the acupuncturists in that network end up working with fertility and have a lot more experience in that area. So they would be my recommendations in terms of trying to find somebody. Free info sheets. Everybody likes some free stuff. Because you've showed up tonight, because you're here with me, and I wanted to give something back and I wanted to give you some takeaway kind of actions, I've got some info sheets that I am very happy to send to you for attending. One covering the concept of Chinese medicine, so the principles of yin and yang, and the other one talking about diet and Chinese medicine, so understanding what we eat, how we eat, and when we eat. So if you would like to take advantage of getting this free info, send an email to me at that address there. I will leave that there just for a second. And obviously this webinar is being recorded and you'll be able to see it back on YouTube, I think, later on. And I believe that is my last slide. So hooray. I hope you all found that interesting. I very much enjoyed that. It's incredible how quickly half an hour goes. So hopefully Heather's here to open up the Q&A.
Hi Ian, thank you. That was lovely. If you could just stop sharing your screen, and it will come back to both of us.
There we go.
Lovely, thank you very much. First of all, I loved your term accountability buddy, and I think
yes.
I think we all need an accountability buddy for ongoing emotional support. I thought that was wonderful.
Definitely. Huge part of it is accountability.
Now, can you just repeat for me, because I was really interested in what you said about foods that somebody who's trying to conceive should eat from day one up until the middle of their cycle. Was that right?
Yes. So in Chinese medicine, we see the menstrual cycle as having two energetic halves. And it's that concept of yin and yang, hot and cold. And the first half of the menstrual cycle, so from day 1 to day 14, is the yin aspect of the cycle. So yin in Chinese medicine is all about fluids and blood and nourishment. So if we think about what's happening in the menstrual cycle at that point, we've got the follicles growing, which are filled with vital fluid. We've got the endometrial lining thickening up. So it's all about blood flow. It's all about fluids and blood. So in Chinese medicine, the foods that help with that are what we call blood nourishing foods. So anything that is dark, green and leafy will be blood nourishing. So you've got spinach, curly kale, broccoli is a good one. Beetroot is very good. It's also if it's red in colour. And red meat is an absolute winner, which is challenging for some people. There are a lot of clients that don't eat red meat, in which case it's got to be the dark leafy greens, and maybe a liquid iron supplement would help as well. But yeah, really important, that one. Does that help?
That's really useful information. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go straight down to the questions, see what we've got here. Really interesting presentation so far, thank you. One question is, would you recommend having acupuncture the day before and after the IVF embryo transfer?
Yes, I kind of figured this question would probably come up, and I should have mentioned it in the presentation. This is a really good question, and it comes up a lot when people are seeking acupuncture. The reason this one comes up is because I think it was a study in 2009, it might have been 2005, but there was a study that demonstrated women that had acupuncture pre and post embryo transfer had an increased success rate, which was fantastic and really, really good. And I'm certainly not one to rubbish that study and rubbish anyone that's promoting acupuncture in that way. However, the problem with studies is that they follow a certain format, and that format is that it's a randomized controlled trial, which means everybody gets exactly those that receive acupuncture will have received exactly the same treatment. And hopefully one of the themes that should have come up through my presentation is that acupuncture is very much tailored to the individual and their needs. So I could have a whole week's worth of fertility clients, and they will all have slightly different needs. Therefore, their treatment will be slightly different. Their dietary changes will be slightly different. So with that session, that pre and post session, because it's a protocol-based treatment, I personally don't think it's the be-all and end-all. I think what's more important is regular ongoing treatment as a lead up in terms of a preparation for an IVF cycle, throughout an IVF cycle, and then up to test day. And also what I have found is I've had women phone me up and say, oh, I've got embryo transfer tomorrow, can you fit me in? No, I can't, unfortunately, I'm fully booked. And it's creating a huge amount of stress for them. And I actually think the stress of trying to fit those two treatments in so close to a transfer could be detrimental in terms of the emotions that it's creating. If, however, it works, it's something that somebody wants, then I would work my hardest to find somebody that can help them if I can't. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Let me know if that doesn't and there's more I need to clarify.
No, that's fine, thank you. I mean, you talked about acupuncture identifying, resolving, and then maintaining that balance. But you also talked about some people having a few sessions and some people staying with you for many years while they're on their fertility journey. Can you sort of give me an average? Because we've sort of got both ends of the spectrum there.
That's a really difficult one, actually. And I get some tricky questions from people like, ultimately, sort of, will it work for me? What are your success rates? And that's really, really difficult, because I could be working with a 30-year-old with excellent egg reserve who's just a bit stressed versus somebody who's 42 with very low egg reserve. So the results of treatment are relieving the stress, changing the diet, supporting, the whole journey. I can't remember the question. I've gone off on a tangent.
How many sessions
Yes.
would you expect it to take for the identify, resolve and maintain cycle that you do to get that balance?
Like I say, my starter program is 3 months, and that would be 10 to 12 sessions. I would say within 10 to 12 sessions, most of my clients are in a much, much better place. They're feeling more relaxed, their stress levels are down, they've taken on board all the diet stuff that I've given them, they've started changing their lifestyle habits. So they are heading towards that maintain side of the system. The reason people stay with me for a long time, or choose to stay with me for a long time, is because they're getting that ongoing support, and their fertility journey is taking that long, unfortunately. They're going from one IVF cycle to another, or they've had an IVF cycle and then they're going to have a frozen transfer 3 months later. They've appreciated the benefit and the support of the treatment, so they carry on as a maintenance style kind of program.
Lovely. Thank you. Right, let's have a look at the questions that have come in. I've recently been diagnosed with my right pelvis being out of alignment and have had ongoing right groin discomfort for years. I've had 2 failed frozen embryo transfers so far and have never been able to conceive. Can this be the root of my infertility?
Gosh, that's a big question. Sorry to hear about the challenges you're having. I would say with something like that, I'm sure acupuncture could help on many levels. I've certainly heard of a lot of people looking at things like osteopathy and fertility massage, and certainly if there's something structural going on with the pelvis, then I would want to work alongside an osteopath, so that they could work on that with you, and how that could be impacting on blood flow. Obviously, it's really hard for me to comment on a particular case without knowing a whole case history. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, is reflexology part of Chinese medicine? And also, what type of exercise is best to prepare for IVF and during the IVF treatment? So 2 questions there.
Oh, excellent questions. Yes, reflexology is really closely linked to Chinese medicine. So what's interesting with Chinese medicine and acupuncture is, obviously, so tonight I've kind of talked about the whole system, the whole body. What comes up in acupuncture as well is this concept of what we call microsystems. So it's where the whole body is represented in a smaller area of the body, the ear being one particular microsystem. And I guess in a way reflexology would be very similar in that it's the whole body represented on the feet. And a good reflexologist is able to pick up the energy in certain organs through points on the feet. So I'm a big fan of reflexology, and I think, I think it can be hugely beneficial for fertility clients. And the second question, remind me?
Was what type of exercise during IVF treatment?
Yeah, good one, that one, because people are often wary. It's like, what do I do? What do I not do? I remember when I was at the Z2S clinic, the head embryologist said to me that they've done studies to see if an embryo moves after it's been put back in when the woman gets up, and then if she then gets back down, if they assess and it doesn't move at all. So there's always that fear after an embryo transfer that, what do I do? What do I not do? I think the recommendation certainly from the Z2S clinic is take it easy for a day, and then get back to relatively normal activities, so walking and gentle strolls. In terms of exercise throughout a kind of fertility journey or a menstrual cycle, again, it very much depends on the individual's case. Certainly, if I've got somebody who is very deficient, so their energy or their blood energy is very low when they're on their period, I would be saying, and in fact, that's my general advice for any woman, is don't exercise on your period. Rest up. And I encourage people to kind of eat their way out of it. So back to that kind of blood nourishing stuff that we talked about. Until your energy and your blood level has returned, then back to whatever your normal exercise is and what's appropriate for you. I'm a huge fan of yoga, Pilates, swimming, Tai Chi and Qigong, which are energy-based exercises from Chinese medicine. Really, really good, because they're about cultivating and nourishing energy rather than expending it. I'm certainly not a big fan of running or excessive running or any kind of high impact exercises. However, for women that really struggle with PMT, so become kind of highly stressed or kind of dyspraxic or angry or emotional before a period, then actually some slightly more rigorous exercise can help. So a brisker walk, something that's going to get the energy flowing and stop that kind of blockage that happens in the energy before the period flows.
Okay, thank you. I think we've just got time for one or two questions here. Can acupuncture improve fertility for low AMH women under 35? So under the, I assume that means under the age of 35.
Yeah, it would. Getting some great questions here. Fantastic. Yeah. Sorry, what was the first part of it? Can it improve?
For low AMH.
So there are some studies out there that talk about the positive effects of acupuncture on blood flow to the uterus. So there's a certain treatment that I do that involves some electroacupuncture that has been proven to increase the blood flow, or what it technically does is decrease the resistance in the uterine artery. If you decrease the resistance, you would therefore expect the blood flow to increase. So if you've got somebody with low egg reserve, then getting as much blood to that area to help those eggs, be as well nourished as possible and to help the endometrial lining, that's only got to help in some way, shape or form. Obviously a low or diminishing egg reserve, we can't change that with acupuncture, but we can enhance the overall health of a woman's fertility, hopefully, in terms of energy and kind of blood flow. That's how I'd be looking at it.
Lovely. Right, there are two questions left, but unfortunately we've only got time for one, and it's a very general question, which is, and I'm going to ask you to try and summarize it in a few sentences. How can you have touched on this already, how can acupuncture help with men?
Good. I think ultimately it's giving them somebody to talk to. It's giving them somebody who can help with the dietary and lifestyle advice, so they're getting trusted advice from a professional, with an accountability buddy as well, to make sure they're on track. We can help with supplements, give the emotional support, and what's the question again? How can it help men?
How can it help with men?
I just think it gives them that place to talk.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Now we're really running out of time here, and I've just got to round it up a little bit. So I think we'll finish with the questions there. Ian, thank you so much for sharing your insights. They really have been excellent tonight, and I'm really sure that they will give many a much fuller understanding of whether or not, this discipline could help them in their fertility journey, and whether it's something that they'd like to investigate further if they're not already, trying acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Do remember, everybody, there is a wealth of information on our Trying to Conceive community on our website. There's fact sheets about medical investigations, fertility treatments, and of course, as always, the fertility FAQs. You can find that on www.fertilitynetworkuk.org. And we do hope